Today we'll create footer navigation section in Figma using Autolayout. I'm gonna show you how to do it step by step. Now let's call it footer. Let's spell it correctly. Let's add layout grid. For the layout grid, I'm gonna select columns. I'm gonna put count to 12, margin to 128, and the gutter is gonna be 232. Great. Now this is done. So now let's create this element right here, which is subscribe to our newsletter. Select this, copy. Let's hide the grid for now. Let's bring our button and let's create the input fields as well. Okay, let's drag them here so we have them as a reference. First, get your copy and drag it right here. So we're gonna have enter your email, which is gonna be enter and regular 14 and auto. All right, now let's add an auto layout, which is Shift A, and let's position it to the center. We're gonna add a padding to 16. All right, and top and bottom we're gonna add to 12. All right, great. Now let's add the stroke, which is gonna be white, and let's add the roundness to 8. Try to work always on increments of 8 for points. That would help you a lot in the future. Okay, so this now we have 16, which on the left and right, and top and bottom we have 12. So let's increase it to 14, or let's increase it to 16. See how it is? Great. What we have to do is let's set the height to 20, because we wanna make sure that our height is 48. Okay, which is gonna be 14, and it's gonna be 14 here as well. Here we go, 48. Great. It's easy to scale that way. Now let's duplicate this copy. Let's say subscribe. Let's spell it correctly. Now let's add uppercase right here. Let's click Shift A, which is add an auto layout. Now I'm gonna hold Control or Command and I'm gonna tap here and add the values that I wanted to go top, bottom, left and right. Okay, so it's just gonna be 16. Right, great. So let's make sure that the height of the button matches the height of the input field. This is very important. Now let's add the correct color to the actual button, so you can see the colors right here. So this red is the color code 334C, and this is solid white. Let's add the same corner radius, which is gonna be 8. Now let's call it input or email, and this is gonna call button. Great, this is done. Now let's delete this too. Select both elements, add an auto layout, set the padding between them to 12. We're gonna create this email right here. Great. Now let's set the constraints. So email is gonna be fill container. We're gonna have fill container and fix height. All right, and the button is gonna be on hug content. Right, so now if we're going to make this bigger or smaller, the text within will compensate. All right, that's cool. So why is it 124? Let's keep it to like that. Great. So the alignment would be on the alignment would be on the left. Great, so this is done. Now we have our title and we have our copy. Let's make sure we always work with the copy. This will make big difference. So every time when you work with the copy, make sure you don't have two words or two letters just left here. Okay, it's always better to move them in the second line. This will make a big difference on your design. Okay, so always try to keep that in mind. So let's add this in auto layout as well, and we're gonna create copy. Right, this is great. So now let's select these two elements, add an auto layout. Let's set the alignment to horizontal. Let's move the copy to the left, and let's make alignment to center. Now we're gonna add right here, we're gonna click on this alignment tool and we're gonna click X, okay, because we wanna split them. So now if we're gonna do that, you see they're gonna stay on the sides because this is what we not need right now. So let's create this one now, set it up to fill container and hug content. That's fine. So subscribe. Great. Now let's add the padding. So let's add the padding to 32. Great. Let's add the fill color, which is gonna be our red. Amazing. Now let's make sure we increase the height, the width, sorry, and then let's add the corner radius to 24, or let's add it, let's say 16. Yeah, 16 is much better. Now let's add our element within the footer. So technically this element right here, it's not part of the footer, but I added here just so we can inspect and design more elements, because I think this will be very useful for you guys. So let's get this section and create it separately. Okay, so now this section is done. What we want to do is add it within this frame, and let's make sure that we add an auto layout, which we already have, right? Let's enable our grid, and let's make sure that our sign up widget takes exactly, let's say in our instance is gonna be how many columns. Have to see. Let's do yeah, let's do 10, right? Yeah, this is better, because remember you're gonna allow this container to be much bigger, because you're not always gonna have this short copy, because content managers, they can add more copy right here, so you have to account for that. All right, let's add this two elements, and let's make this smaller. Let's make sure it's centrally aligned and is correct, right? Let's click it, subscribe. Great. Let's align it, make sure it's aligned correctly. Let's select both elements, align it horizontally and vertically. All right, great. So it's 29. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. Now let's create the actual footer section. The same applies. Let's get the same frame in, which is it's 1440. Let's reduce the height right now. Let's copy the grid system. So let's hover it right here. Click Ctrl C, click Ctrl V. When you're gonna create a project, what you're gonna happen is you're gonna create 4 dots right here, and you're gonna create a style and save it in your libraries, so you're always gonna have it available when you need it. All right. Now let's disable the grid right here. Let's add our logo and the copy. Let's move it down, and let's add our social media as well. Great. let's make sure we position the elements correctly. Okay, so let's have an auto layout. Let's click Ctrl A. Let's add a padding of 32. Let's set the elements to fill container, and then we're gonna adjust the container to the correct size, which is gonna be 4 columns. Then we can add this element within the frame and just position it on the bottom. Let's add this, make sure this copy is aligned. So you see these 3 letters right here. Let's move it down because it's gonna look way better. This will make a big difference when you actually work with the copies, and all your elements will be nice aligned. If you need few more words just to cover here, you can say just adjust your copy. I'm gonna say his, right, or have or something. It's at have, right? So we have to make sure our copy is correctly aligned. Let's position the element right here for now, and let's create our menus, right? So usually we're gonna duplicate it, the header navigation that we have on the top. All right, so we have to be right here. It's not necessary to add all the elements, but add just the most important one. But if you want to add all of them, that's absolutely fine as well. That's not a problem. Now let's disable the grid because we don't need it, and let's add these elements right here. We have our title, which is 14, and the line height is 20, and it's semi-bold, right? And the submenu elements, let's add the correct, its inter is gonna be 14, or we can do it 13. I don't really like to add 13, so it's gonna be either 12 or it's gonna be 14, but 13 works as well. Usually you're using when you're doing an applications as well, because you really need 13 is a sweet spot. Okay, so let's add it to 16. That's absolutely fine. Let's add an auto layout, and let's set the padding between the elements to 16. Okay, or we can add it to 20. That works. I think 20 is too much. Let's keep it 16. Let's add another auto layout, and let's set the padding between the title to 20, because I think this looks nice. All right, now we're gonna select our copy. What you can do is select one by one, or you can select your elements and click enter. Every time you click enter, you're gonna drop one level below. And let's add the constraints to fill container, and let's align it to the left, right? The same applies for the title. Great. Now let's enable our grid, and let's make sure that the elements, they are positioned correctly within the grid system. All right, so just to save our time, I'm gonna add the elements that I've already done it above. I'm gonna add them here. Okay, and I'm just copy them, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ungroup them so you can see how we're gonna add them into the auto layout. So let's select all the elements and add an auto layout. Let's add the constraints. Let's click X, and it's gonna be split between. All right, so split between, and we're gonna add it, make sure it's aligned with the top of our logo. Right, so we have our elements. Let's align it to the top, which is great. All right, so we got this done. Let's copy our copyright, which is gonna be always size 12. It can be even 10, depends on how you want it, but ideally that should be very small shift. There is no reason for it to be 16 or 18 or so on. Now let's add the divider. We're gonna have a nice divider because we need visually to break it down. Okay guys, and then let's add the opacity to 50. I think 10 would be would be the best, because it would be too much if we're gonna add. Alright, let's delete this element. Now what we can do is get these elements. Now we have to, let's add this now to layout as well. Let's add split between. Alignment is gonna be to the top. Alright, and then we can add we can add text to fill container, and we can give it 4 columns. It's fine, because usually what's gonna happen if we have more here, more copy here, then these elements will get pushed down. All right, but we have to make sure we keep the padding always the same. Okay, so let's add this to fill container, so it's nice and evenly. Yep, so then we're gonna get this divider, and we're gonna select all the elements and add another auto layout, and we're gonna add padding to 40. All right, so 40 is fine. Now where we have all our elements positioned correctly, let's add the padding top and bottom. So padding top is gonna be 48, and the padding bottom is gonna be 48 as well. So let's remove it. Got 60, you got 48. Amazing. So let's call it footer. Great. So we have all our elements positioned within the grid. This is very important, because you have to remember that all these elements and the section will be developed. All right, so if you will split it with without using the grid system, for the dev guys, it would be very hard for them to develop, and they won't be happy, right? Okay, and they probably will get it right, but they will do it the way they think it should look. So make sure you account for that every time when you do that. Try to position your elements within the grid system, or at least have some sort of logic when you do that. Okay, what we can do is we can add the padding, or we can remove the padding. We can create containers that will have, let's say, 2 columns, right? And then remove the padding between them. It's up to you guys, as long as it's clearly defined. That's the most important. Okay, great. Now let's hide our grid. So it's gonna be Ctrl+Shift+4 to hide and enable the grid system. This is the shortcut I use. Now let's get these elements merged together. What I want as well is I just want to add this divider on the top. Let's make sure it's visible. Here we go. Right here. I'm gonna do it differently. All right, I'm just gonna duplicate it, move it to the top. Now let's get all the elements positioned correctly. We got 28, 28. Move this on the top. Then let's remove a little bit of padding from this widget above. So we have 48, 48. So let's reduce it to the bottom one. Let's reduce it to 24. Okay, got 30, 28. So then let's say -4, and we got perfect 28. Then let's move these sections together. Great. What I think is, let's do it differently. Let's get these 2 elements and put them into one. So let's add an auto layout. or just put it 0. Okay, and then we can have this element. We can add the divider, which is gonna be 1. It's gonna be blurred to 0. All right, we're gonna add it to the top. It's gonna be to 100% because you want to see it, right guys? So to -1, still don't see it. Let's add it to 1 right here. Let's put this to 0. So why am I not seeing this element? Should see it. Okay, so the positioning is on the y-axis, and that should be 1. I don't know why I can't. Now I can see it. Great. Okay, so now sometimes you just have to, when you have dark background, it's very hard to see the dividers. So I have to make sure that these dividers on the bottom, on the top, matches the one on the bottom. So we have our solid black of 10%. Let's do it the same. Got solid black of 10%, 1 pixel. Amazing. Now this 2 section can be selected and added to the frame. Let's call it footer. As I said, guys, this element usually is not part of the footer, but we just, for the sake of this tutorial, gonna call it footer. All right, amazing. What's the padding top? So it's 48. The same should be applied on the bottom. It's gonna be 48, right? Check. Let's make sure when we do resizing, we hold Ctrl and then select this element. So we got 37, right? So let's add right here. Is gonna be plus 10. I'm gonna go, just one more. So rest is gonna be 4. Great, amazing. Got 28, we got 48. We have to move it 4 pixels up. All right, let's see it again. We got 52. So we have to remove 4 pixels from this element. Nice. Got 48, 24, 24. Now let's select our section. Make sure I have it right. Okay, so now all our elements are positioned correctly within the grid. We have our paddings top and bottom, which match exactly. We can move it, technically we can move this a little bit up, adjust the elements, and so on. So just because we have this divider right here, which is full width, technically we could add this to be a full width as well, or we can just keep it like that. Up to you guys. This is just a personal choice. Ideally I would have them like that, because I like how they look, and it's visual breakdown as well. Okay, all right, so now if we have all our elements positioned within the frame, so now we have footer, then what we have to do is rename the elements. Okay, so we can get these elements and call it left. This is how I like it. It's easier for me and for the dev guys as well, because you got section on the left, section on the right, then you got container or content, which is gonna be footer, and is the top section is gonna be our subscribe, we're gonna add it like that, and we're gonna call this top, and this we're gonna call it bottom. All right, and if you have middle, we're gonna call the middle section as well. It's easier for me to work that way. And then this entire section would be our footer. Amazing. So we got our color palette right here. Don't really need it anymore. Let's add this element right here and swap them around. Amazing. All right, this is how you create a footer navigation in Figma. If you have any questions, please leave in the comment section below and check our videos on the channel